Morning everybody. So the funds are dried up a bit on the Pinzgauer project, so we're going to do a few little projects based around the things I'm going to fit into the Pinzgauer, and they're going to be quite a few little wiring projects. There's going to be people disagree with the way I would do things, but if you think it's a better way to do it, then feel free to comment on the bottom of the videos and see how you would do them differently. It might change my opinion. It might clarify something I've got wrong, and it's going to help everybody in the long run. There's going to be links down in the description about anything that we use in the project, and there's also going to be some pictures and things attached for wiring diagrams of anything we're using. So that's hopefully going to help people. A few things we're going to wire up. So you'll have seen in previous videos that I have one of these intercom systems wired into the Pinzgauer, and we're going to wire in a few things so that the people can hear all of these radios, etc. Across all the headsets that are into that intercom system. And the one we're going to start with first of all is to wire in a CB cable, and then we're going to also have a car stereo wired in, and we're going to have a look at whether we can wire in an iPod 3-pin 4 connection plug, so that we can see if we can use the microphone on the iPhone to use it hands-free, but also just to see if we can stream straight from an auxiliary plug straight into the system to get music or phone or anything else like that. So we'll get on. I've moved into the house because I've done a couple of jobs recently, a couple of solders and things in the workshop, and it's been so cold that I've barely been able to get my soldering iron up to temperature to heat up the solder. So we'll work inside for a couple of these and try not to burn a hole in my wife's dining room table. You see here a rather knackered Clansman radio headset. I got a big job lot of these headsets quite a while ago, thinking I would repair them, but they've ended up being quite a considerably good source of spares, and most importantly a good source for cabling and plugs. These Clansman headsets have got the same headset connection into our intercom system, so they work just fine as inputs. We've got a good length of cable on them as well that we can then wire on jack plugs, etc. onto the end of. So if you can get hold of a few old headsets, they're going to be a wealth of parts for you to use in any projects you're going to use. So this is our cable that we've cut off our headset. It's our 7-pin plug, and we're just going to strip about an inch of these outer sheathing so that we end up with our 7 cores exposed, and we'll strip a little bit of them so that we can work on them. So the back of the CB radio, this is the first project we're going to do, has a 3.5mm plug like one of these on the back, and it's a mono speaker. we don't run the microphone from the CB into the radio system, because the microphone in CBs works differently. It's not the same type of microphone, so it won't operate from the Pressel switches and things. So it's better just to work with the handset, but at least you'd be able to hear what's happening on the radio over the headsets. So we're going to wire that in. So that's if we take this apart, it's a 2-pole plug, and obviously we've got our 7-core cable coming into it. So there's only going to be 2 cables we're going to look to use on this, and they're going to be the speaker negative, which is the white wire, and the left speaker, which is the orange wire. Okay, the other 4 wires we're going to dead end, so that they're not going to touch against each other, short anything like that, and we'll keep them all nice and clean. Okay, so on the 4 wires that we're not using, I've put a little bit of heat shrink over the ends of them, and we just heat that up with the hot air gun and shrink it onto the wires, and that means that there's going to be no chance of the tips of those wires shorting themselves out against each other. So now we just strip the orange wire and the red wire, sorry, the orange wire and the white wire. All these wires have got like a nylon thread through them to insulate them and to strengthen them. And then we're going to solder on these 2 wires onto this jack plug. Okay, what we need to think about is where we're working 2 steps ahead. So we're going to need some insulation later on to strengthen the joints and things. So we need to thread on a bit of shrink for later on. And what we also need to do is we need to pre-solder our plug tips so that they accept the wires a little bit easier. So we've got our 2 wires soldered on here. The white one I've covered in the green shrink because I've included the insulating wire on into that solder as well, so that there's the negative all through the wire. And we're just going to now dress all this up. This little clear collar here, that insulates the two terminals from the outer body of the fitting. There's enough room inside these fittings that we can hide these dead ends of cable in. Screw that up. And then what I like to do is cover all over all the mess with the bit of shrink. And that also insulates the body of the plug a lot more. So again, you get a far neater job when you use the heat gun. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the multimeter to just test our connections. Maybe should have done this before we heat shrunk all the things up. So from the pin diagram that you'll find on the bottom of our sheet or description, you'll be able to do your test. Okay, so our bottom center pin should be our live connection, which is our end. This is never easy with yeah, so I've got a nice tone there, and then our one round from that should be our speaker. And we shouldn't have either of them connecting with the others or any of the other pins, which we don't. So therefore we should have quite a good cable there. And we'll go and test that in the Pinzgauer and see if that is all singing and dancing. Right, so we've got a 12 volt CB here. It's on and wired into the 12 volt supply that I've got in the glove box. We put in one end, the headphone jack end of our new cable. And then we have our 7-pin end here, and that's going to go into this auxiliary input on our intercom box. Right, so these plugs can be a good old pain to get in and out sometimes. So we're now all wired in. I'm going to put this headset on. So I've got the headset on now. And if I adjust the squelch on the radio, then I'm getting the squelch coming through the headset, and that's working fine. And if I key the you don't get anything. However, when I press the up and down channel buttons, I'm getting the required beep in the headset as well. So I would say that's up and running and working. So that's a good test of that cable.